Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Review. Hi friends! So today is going to be a video that I haven't made one of these in a while because it's just been really busy with end of the year and beginning of the year stuff, and I haven't really needed like a filler video in a while. And I know that seems like a weird name, but you'll see what I mean. I have this, it's not officially done as a series, but every once in a while I do these videos that it is like 5 random reviews. Sometimes they do have kind of a theme. Sometimes there's, you know, something that inspired me to do it or whatever. But also sometimes it's just to bring some books to your attention that I feel like maybe got overlooked and or I just want to talk about them more and haven't had like a video to put them in a while. So it's a mix of those, you know. And it's also, yeah, and the reason why I say it's like a filler video is that it's not, you know, one of my weekly videos or an oddly specific rec or whatever. It's just going to be, I'm going to bring 5 books to you and do kind of a deep, well, not deep dive, that's, we won't be. I'll give you my like thoughts on them. And, you know, maybe bring an older book to your attention or something like that. So, because the books I'm going to talk about today, one of them is a newer one, but like I said, it's one that I haven't talked about as much as I want to. And even though it is, you'll see, it's a pretty popular author, so I know people have talked about it, but I want to talk about it more because it's one I haven't really stopped thinking about it. It's still kind of in my head. I really liked it. And the other ones are all books that have come out. It's been quite a while since they've come out now. So they're ones maybe you've forgotten about, or they're ones that, you know, you just haven't heard people talking about. So we're going to do that. So anyway, that's enough caveats. Let's go ahead and get started. And we will start with one that I did just read, but it is a few years old now. And it just really, really touched me. And so when one of those does that, I want all of you guys to read it. So the book that I read, I only read it like last week, was 1% of You by Michelle Gross. So this was one that actually had been recommended in my book rec form. And I just, you know, there are a lot of books in there. I just recently shared, like I've had over 1,000 books be recommended through that over the years, but things just get lost in there. It's why I have people write a little like tropes that are in it so that if I'm ever looking for a trope, let's say single mom or motorcycle romance or mafia romance, I can control search for those things and it helps me find them. But with this one, I wanted more with a pregnant mom in the book. Inspired, of course, by P.S. You're Intolerable. That is what I was looking for. I also was looking for lactation recs because I do want to make an oddly specific video with that. And so this one came up for both of those things. Well, because they usually do crossover. If there is a pregnant mom at one point and she has a baby in it, if we want there to be sex happening sometime in the book, there's usually breast milk involved. So anyway, I know I'm really into it and I talk about it a lot. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like that, because it's totally fair if you don't like that, you know, I never judge one way or the other, whether you think something's gross or you think it's the hottest thing ever, there's no judgment here. But this one doesn't have a ton of it in it. So if it's not something you like, it's not like it's the whole point of the book, right? That is what I was looking for, is I wanted books that aren't just about the kink, because I want to be able to recommend them on a full scale. See, this is why I don't do these videos all the time. I end up explaining myself more than anything. But anyway, the point being, 1% of You was recommended. And when I heard what it was about, I was like, I'm going to read it right away. And I'm so glad that I did because it was so touching. This one is a very young mom, like she's 21. She has a 3-year-old and she's pregnant with her next baby who his name is going to be Eli. She's already picked it. And in the beginning of this, she has just moved into a small low-income housing apartment. She is in nursing school. She's working at a nursing home, and things are really tough right now because she just found her boyfriend cheating on her, and so she kicked him out. She's not living with him anymore, and she is really depending on like her parents to help her. They will often, like, I thought there was some really cute stuff, like the parents will like cook for her a lot, and they watch the kids every day, and she really is depending on them a lot. And her ex, he is only a parent when he wants to be, and he uses his love for his children as like a tool to spend more time with her to try to win her back. And it's just, he's a toxic a-hole. Okay, it's really awful to see. Then we have Elijah, who is our hero. He's a bit of a grump. He's just moved to town, and he lives in a house that is near the apartments, you know. So imagine there's like a house, there's a low-income apartments, and then like his house is over here, so he can see the front door of the apartment from his house. And he is a tattoo artist, and he owns 2 tattoo shops. And he just moved from the other town where his one tattoo parlor was to this one because his parents live here, and his mom has kind of guilted him into coming and living in the town again. They want to be near him. So he's there. He's not really super happy to be there. And the way that he first gets into a connection with them is that he at first too has some really harsh thoughts about her, and is thinking that she's just a welfare woman who's just trying to live off of that, and sees that she's pregnant with a second baby. Like some of those judgments that people might have of, I mean, let's be honest, of poor people with lots of kids, right? They're thoughts that people have sometimes. But that unlikableness in him doesn't last long at all. But first, he's still a little shit. And when he is at the grocery store, he happens to see the little girl, who I think her name is Lucy, is the little girl. Hadley is the mom. Elijah is our hero. Lucy, the little girl. Eli is the one in the tummy right now. Anyway, let me just lay that all out. And he actually gets in a little fight over some Funyuns with Lucy. And she like dropped a bag of Funyuns, and he picks it up and he won't give it back to her, and it's the last bag. And Hadley kind of like is like, seriously, you're doing this to my little girl? So they have this like back and forth. Then when he goes home, he the next day sees them like leaving for the day. And he's like, oh my gosh, I live right across from them. This is crazy. So yeah, it is pretty like awkward beginnings. But he very quickly feels like an ass, and he ends up trying to make it up to the little girl and the mom by, you know, let's say bringing Funyuns every day for a week for the little girl. He just starts to become invested in them, and he quickly sees that, wow, she's actually working really hard, and he finds little ways to try to help out. And she's very distrustful of this. She still like doesn't like this guy who she thinks was mean to her little girl, but he slowly starts to find ways to become invaluable to them and starts to fall in love with all of them. So that's enough of an explanation for that. I know I talked for a long time. That's all that I explained is really just the setup and like the first few chapters of this book. But you guys know me. I like to get into it a ways. But that is the beginning of 1% of You. And I just love this so much. There was no third act breakup in this one. There was, you know, she is very worried about trusting a man with her future after what she's been through. So that is mostly the conflict in this one. But Elijah is just so devoted to this little family. It's really beautiful. I love it so much. Okay, next, I'm really going all over. I have The Warlock's Kiss by Tiffany Roberts for you. I actually listened to the audio of this one. I ordered a signed copy of this one too. And this one is one that actually came out in 2019, and they had like a new cover and stuff made for it when the audiobook came out. And I'm one of their patrons, so patrons, they'll do these giveaways in there for the audiobooks, and so I happened to listen to this one, and I enjoyed this a lot. It fits a couple crosshairs of different tropes, so it's a little bit dystopian, but it also has paranormal, and it's a brother and a sister who have lived through what's called the Sundering. And so it's killed millions of people, and it also filled the world with monsters and everything. So that's the paranormal stuff. It also maybe has a little bit of like Soul Eater vibes if you think about it, except, you know, MF instead. And so also the issue is that Adeline is her name, and Danny is her little brother. She has something wrong with her. I can't remember if it's epilepsy or what it is. Or no, she has cancer. She has cancer. And so she is going to die because there's now no way to treat the cancer, and it's just her and her brother. So in the time that it's just been him and her, she's trying to teach him how to survive because she's expecting someday, you know, maybe she'll be too weak. He'll have to leave her behind. She's going to die. Like, these are the things we're preparing for. So that is a heavy weight. And like, man, can you even imagine? And they stumble across this mansion, and it happens to be the home of a warlock named Merrick. And they break into his home and start eating his peanut butter, and he gets very mad about this and is going to kill them. But instead, he feels this crazy like feeling towards her, and she's his fated mate. So he can't just smite them and get rid of them like he wants to. He now, you know, he very much tries to like resist it, but we'll see how well that works for him. So yeah, this one was really great. There's also then, you know, she has this cancer. Did he find his mate just to discover that not only was she human, which would mean she'd have a short lifespan anyway, but she has cancer and there's no way to fix it? Or is there? HEA guaranteed, but I highly recommend, you know, if you love paranormal, if you love dystopian, Tiffany Roberts write. I love their romances so much, whether it's their sci-fi, the paranormal, the monster romance. I love how they write. And if you guys didn't know, I love sharing this. They write their books like they're playing a live action role play game. So they will share a screen and they'll each pick a character, which, I mean, it's usually he's the man and she's the woman, and they will write their dialogue that way, where they're literally reacting to each other and doing scenarios and stuff. And I just, when they first explained that, it just makes me so happy. And it's really funny too, because Tiffany would sometimes like there to be maybe some more like dubious consent in some of their books and be harsher, but Rob never feels comfortable having his characters be too mean to her character, which I just love. So, and some of their books are even based off of some of their first like RPG characters that they created in role plays back then. So that's so cool. So yeah, check this out. I of course will have links to the books that I'm talking about so you can get yourself a copy. Okay, then I want to throw up the one that, this one is the more recent one, like I said, but I loved this book so much. So it's actually The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. And I was thinking about this one because I am going to be rereading The Deal in February. One of my patrons wants it. And it just made me, like, I'm really excited to read about Garrett and Hannah again, because that is the parents in this one, or one set of parents anyway, and Gigi is their daughter, and she is trying to lead the women's national hockey team and win the Olympic gold. And then Luke Ryder, he's a co-captain of the Briar's new hockey team. So the thing is that it was Briar U and another college, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was Briar U and another college that they have had to merge. And so they make a captain, one from each of the like original teams. But there's a lot of strife on the team. And also Ryder, like so many of the hockey players, really looks up to Gigi's dad. And, you know, even though he's kind of from like the rival school, like of course everyone looks up to Garrett Graham. Like they're obsessed with him, right? So he wants to impress him, and he wants to, you know, be able to make it into the pros. So the thing is, of course, there's a few obstacles. Number one, they of course kind of have this antagonism going just a little bit from being at separate schools. Also, her ex-boyfriend is the other captain. So he's the captain of like the Briar U gang, and Ryder is the other captain. And now her ex really wants her back, but he cheated on her. So for her, that's a no-go. We're done. Now, what I do want to say, though, I'll throw this in, is that I do love what we see of her ex in this. He does have a good, like, small character arc on the side. And I liked how, you know, young relationships were kind of looked at here. Because guess what? People mess up. And it doesn't make you a villain. I mean, it makes you not right for the person you were with if you cheated on them, but it doesn't always automatically make you a villain. And I really appreciated the restraint of Elle Kennedy, that we did not make him full villain because he cheated on his girlfriend. I mean, again, that's shitty, but it doesn't mean he's evil and would all of a sudden start doing horrible things. You know what I mean? I feel like that happens so often, what we do with the other man or other woman, right? Anyway, so the way that this becomes a situation is that she needs some coaching and he wants to get in good with her dad. That's what we come to with them, is that they agree to partner with each other, and she will talk him up to her dad, get her dad to warm up to him and give him some chances on the team, and he will help coach her so she can be better for the women's team. That's what they're going to do. And they pretty quickly in this, again, there's still some rivalry there, but once they start working together, they have mad respect for each other. And I just loved seeing that, especially in college kids, because one of the things I loved about this is so often when you read like a new adult romance, they either read like their children, which I mean, they're close to children, we know, but they read like their preteens, or they read like they're super old and wise already, it's tough to do it. And I feel like Gigi and Ryder were written in this way where like they still have some tendencies of, younger adults, but they also were very mature. And it would make sense because like Gigi has parents who want her to think for herself, who challenge her, who expect her to be, better. And she also has all the role models of all the gang from the off-campus series, right? She has those people as role models in her life. And Luke Ryder, he has had to grow up because of some tragic circumstances that he had, and that left him needing to be an adult quicker than others. So anyway, I skipped this. So what I liked is they have this rivalry, but they have this respect for each other, and they don't immediately assume the worst. And once they begin this partnership of helping each other, they acknowledge their sexual attraction to each other, and they agree to have a friends with benefits scenario. And I loved watching how that grew. Now, they're keeping it a secret because she doesn't want her ex to find out, and neither does Luke, because Ryder is trying to have a good relationship with this ex since they're co-captains. This team needs to be united, and they know if it comes out that he wouldn't take it well. He'd feel like he stole his girl or whatever, even though he's the one who cheated, right? And so that's a lot of the reason for secrecy. Also, they're just planning to scratch each other's itches because they're spending so much time together working on this. They're like, why don't we throw some sex in there too, right? So I just really appreciated that. And while I do think a bit of the beginning up until we really get their like relationship going was a bit like slower, I also can see how they're building the series of this, right? She has more books in this coming soon. And I feel like we built that well, like we were setting up what's coming with that. But I loved it. I loved how their relationship progressed. And I just thought this was such a sweet, yet like very engaging. I was in this the whole time, new adult hockey romance. So I really recommend this. You can start straight with this one. Of course, there are references to the previous series. You're going to see who all got married and what their like kids are and everything. But there's also some family trees that are on Elle Kennedy's Instagram if you want to see that. But I mean, I obviously recommend the off-campus series as well. I love that, and I can't wait to reread The Deal. All right. Now we have one that used to be like an absolute like favorite of mine, and I'm actually kind of scared to reread this one because I don't know how well it would hold up, but it's still one that I like to bring up because it felt so unique, and I've only ever found like one other book that had this type of trope, and me recommending it, I'd love to know if you know any that have this in them. Actually, I know two. I lied. I know two, but I'll explain what those are. But the book that I'm talking about is Our Way by T.L. Swan. So I've had some difficult relationship the past few years because there was a time when I binged all of her books and I loved them, and of course The Takeover, it's in my top 3 books of all time. So I will never lose my respect for T.L. Swan. But she writes like Gossip Girl type level stuff, especially her Stanton series. Now, Our Way, as I said, was so unique. This was a book, like there wasn't even really a lead up to this. She just dropped it. That's kind of what she does with her indie titles. They just get kind of like dropped on us. And this one is about Nathan, and I think now I forgot her name. Hold on. Is it Iris? Eliza, sorry. It's Nathan and Eliza, and they're best friends. But when they first meet, so they meet, I think it's 10 years in the past is when they first meet. It's been quite a while at this point. that they meet. Also, her name is Eliza Bennett, which makes me laugh because it's like Elizabeth. Yeah, it's 10 years ago. He's a doctor, and they meet at the hospital. I don't think she's a nurse. I literally can't remember why, but they meet, and he's gay. He has never slept with a woman. He has always been with men. He loves some dick. That's who he is. He's always loved men. And Eliza has always kind of been in love with him, but her best friend's gay. So they're just going to have a really close relationship. And in fact, it probably is closer than it ever would have been if, you know, he'd been a coworker who she went on a date with and then it didn't work, you know, and they become very close. And 10 years later, they are each other's closest confidant. He takes her on vacations with him. She's a big part of his life. And they both have obviously dated, lived their lives, but they're very close. And, you know, he's gorgeous. She has always had fantasies of, you know, one day him finally like loving her or whatever, you know, wanting her sexually, but she's like, that's never gonna happen. That's just a fantasy. You know, I definitely have had those feelings about like Matt Bohrer, but it's never gonna happen, right? But there begins this change for Nathan where, and I'm going to come right out and say this about it because I don't want this to feel like a fetishization of it or that, you know, he's going to be like turned straight. That's not where this like ends. You know, Nathan doesn't categorize himself as a bisexual or straight at the end of this. It's really more of like through some of his therapy, he's like, well, maybe I'm pansexual or maybe I'm, you know, something else along those lines, because he discovers through his own journey that he fell in love with Eliza's like soul, basically. She's his person, his like other half, and then sexual desire came from that. And so I really appreciated how that came about in here. And again, I just hadn't read anything before this that had anything like that. I've obviously read plenty of it happening the other way, where someone had only ever dated the opposite sex and then starts having same-sex feelings. And I love those as well, right? I love those ones so much. But I just found it so unique that, like, to say it would never happen the other way, I just don't believe that. Like, I just don't believe that it would never happen the other way. Because, you know, people's sexual desires, as people get to know themselves, like, they change through time. So I just don't believe there's never been someone who may have identified as gay that sometime that might change for them, you know, and they open up their circle to other things. So anyway, but this becomes a very like tricky situation for them because, you know, he's never been with a woman. He's having sexual fantasies about Eliza. He's feeling attracted to her. But what if they take the jump and he doesn't actually want to have sex with her? Or he, you know, changes his mind soon and now he's ruined the most important relationship in his life. So they're definitely in a pickle. There definitely is some, you know, I would at this point call it the staple dialogue tags that say they're screaming at each other. T.L. Swan is notorious for doing that, in my opinion, of like, when we're having an argument, we have to be screaming at the other person. And there's a lot of like, you know, discussions of like, are they just codependent? Is it just he can't let anyone else in but her? But I found this so fascinating. And again, I've only read 2 other books that I've felt had this. So there was this one that now for the life of me, I can't remember the name, but actually an author recommended it to me. What was her name? Amara Ray. When I interviewed Amara Ray, she recommended this book to me, and I will try and find it and put a picture. And if I didn't, I'm so sorry. But this one is kind of the same thing of like, they're really close friends, and the book actually kind of begins with him being like, I think I want to be with you, and her being like, no, but you're gay, like I change in front of you, and like all these things or whatever, right? And then there is one that is actually it's actually the Twisted or the Bound and Torn duet by Kay Webster and Nikki Ash. Now that one is a quadruple. I don't really call that one a reverse harem because it's not based around the girl. It's polyamorous. There's 4 that become a relationship. But this one has it where there are 2 best friends, a guy and a girl, and he's only ever been into men. But as like this relationship comes together, he becomes sexually interested in her as well, and they become a, you know, polyamorous, where they all fuck each other relationship. And honestly, it's still the polyamorous relationship that I uphold as my favorite type, where I believed that all four people loved each other equally. There wasn't just like, oh, this pair loved each other, but there's also this person. Like, I fully believe that they all four had connections with each other. But that was a case of he'd only ever dated guys or fucked guys, and as the relationship of all of them grows together, he becomes attracted to her too. And I loved that part of it in there. But it's still, you know, it's still not quite the same as like this one is. So yeah, again, this one has toxic parts. I'm not saying perfect. I'm not saying that's even, you know, but it's a romance, and it is a fantasy in some ways. And it also was really beautiful to watch Nathan come to the realization that it isn't just about what sex parts the other person has. It's about loving them as them. And when you find your partner, when you find your other half, you know, those things will fit together as they need to. So yeah, and again, I'm scared to reread it because my feelings towards T.L. Swan's writing have shifted over time, but I'll still never forget that story. And then I have a spicy, naughty little one for you. I'm trying to find the name here. That I don't talk about this one much because with this author, there's some specific books that get talked about a lot, and this one kind of slides under the radar. So I wanted to recommend Resisting Mr. Granville by Sam Mariano. This was a part of the Blurred Lines series, which was a collaboration with authors that had a lot of taboo and naughty stories in it. You know, like QB Tyler had one that was included in it. And wow, I've forgotten the names of all the other, there was a lot involved in that. I think Gianna Darling had one. Did she have one in this series? Maybe not her. No, I can't remember. There was a whole bunch. But this one, of course, I had to read it as soon as it came out. So this one is a mom's ex-boyfriend one. So we have Milo, who's Mr. Granville, and we have Kennedy, who I think this starts when she's 17. This one is pretty taboo. Yeah. Anyway, so he used to date her mom, and he also was really attracted to her as well. And her mom is a bit of a hoe, like, let's just say it, respect, but she finds rich men to screw who pay her bills. So there's that. And Kennedy, she actually goes to school with Milo's sons, and one of them, she ends up like fake dating him. I can't remember why it is, or maybe to impress somebody. I'm not sure. But also they, she's tutoring him, or he's tutoring her, something like that too. Anyway, it's foggy. Like I said, some of these I haven't read in a while. But anyway, Milo had actually like made a move on her, when her mom wasn't home one night, and she, you know, tried to push him away, but he definitely got his hands on her a little bit. Again, it's Sam Mariano, and it's Blurred Lines. It's not great. Eventually, he's like fully broken up with her mom, and she is now helping his son out, or they're helping each other out, and she's over at his house, which then puts her in his grasp even more. And so now he's able to fully start pursuing her, which is going to lead to some really tricky situations. Not only just with like her mom, you know, because her mom is awful when she finds out what's going on, and of course is blaming the 17, 18-year-old and not the grown adult who's making a move on her, but also for her and the oldest son, who I can't remember his name, but he does play kind of an important role in some stuff in here. Even though this relationship does end with Kennedy and Milo being together, there is a situation where the oldest son helps out, shall we say. But he also does threaten Kennedy at one point. He's a bit of a psychopath because his younger brother likes her, and he's like, you can't be with my dad. My younger brother wants you. He's like, no, he doesn't. We're fake dating. He's like, no, but he really wants you, and you can't be with my dad. You have to be with him. So there's like a lot of like power dynamics being played out there. So this is totally twisted and effed up, but that's Sam Mariano for you. So it goes with the territory. But it's one that was just the things that Sam has her characters do, I don't know how she does it and like it works for me because, well, I don't know. I mean, there is a reason she's not a mainstream author and she's not getting the offers for book deals because she goes there with some of hers. So, and I still like them at the end of the day. But okay, there you go. There is 5 reviews and a little more in depth about some books that I'd like you to try out. And maybe you've already read them because I recommended them before, but go ahead and check out the links I have down below. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel so you know when I upload, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!